You know the saying that ghost curiosity killed the cat? Well, Anita never knew she would ever be the cat as she ventured into the dark room. On this day, her life changed forever. As soon as she switched on the light, she gasped in horror. What? No, she screamed. Let's go back to the beginning. In the beautiful city of Lagos lived a beautiful lady. Her name is Anita. Anita is always very organized and focused, especially on her business. She runs a growing salon around where she lives and attracts lots of customers with her excellent work. One day, she was visiting a client who had booked home service in a hotel. She was running late and somehow missed the room number. While trying to reach for her phone to call the client to get the correct room number, she accidentally bumped straight into a young man and spilled his drink over him. Oh, my God. I'm so sorry, Anita exclaimed. She was searching for her phone in her bag that she forgot to look up, and now she has made a mess. I'm sorry, she kept apologizing, expecting a shout or insult to follow because people in Lagos are mostly angry. But the man only looked at her and smiled. It is fine. How many times will you apologize? He had a deep bass voice that somehow sounded soft and manly. And he had a very charming smile, revealing very white set of teeth. The teeth were so white she could have sworn they were fake. Oh, as many times as I can. I ruined your suit and it really looks expensive. I'm so sorry. Forgive me for being clumsy. Yes, it's expensive and my boss will kill me if he finds out I took his suit and ruined it, the man said with a slight frown. Please, what can I do to fix it? I would do anything, Anita begged, feeling really awful for what she had done. Let me think about it. He put his hand on his chin, pretending to think. Okay, I think you should go out with me. Anita looked at him like he was mad. Clearly, this shouldn't be one of those cheap hungry boys that roam around the city of Lagos looking for every opportunity to woo women, deceive them with fake promises of love, and try to take advantage of them. Excuse me, she frowned. The man looked up and smiled again, and she noticed his dimples, which were slightly visible. Yes, you want to make up for this mess, so go out with me. Don't worry, I'm not a pervert. I actually saw you walk in and I was coming to see if I can get a chance to talk to you, and as I bumped into you I saw it as an opportunity to try my luck. No, oh. So if I go out with you, how will I fix the suit? The coffee really stained it. Your boss will be really mad. Not really, my boss will not mind because the suit is mine, he smiled, and there is no boss because I'm my own boss. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am Richard Olojide and you are. He stretched out his hands for a handshake. Anita looked at him, and I am late for my appointment, I have to get going. Please don't go yet. Just tell me your name or at least agree to go on a date with me. It's a nice gesture for someone whose suit you ruined 5 minutes ago. Please. He gave this playful pout that made Anita almost laugh. Almost. Fine, she pulled out her business card. That's my number. You can call me to book the date. Thank you. Richard looked at the card. Anita Nonko. A beautiful name for a beautiful lady. I definitely call you. Anita quickly left to find her client. 2 days later, a number calls. Hello, Anita says with her most pleasant voice. Hey. Good morning, Anita. How are you? The voice asks. I'm good. Sorry, who is this? It's Richard. The guy you met at the Gardens Hotel 2 days ago. You accidentally spilled my coffee on me. Remember? Anita rolled her eyes. Oh, hello. I remember you, she said dryly. Your tone just changed. I hope you aren't mad I took so long to call. I didn't want to come off as desperate, so I decided to wait a little. From the sound of his voice, Anita could tell Richard was smiling. She could picture his white teeth and barely visible dimples. Well, he's not so bad. There's nothing wrong in giving him an audience, she thought. They talked over the phone for a few more minutes and finally fixed a day and time for their date. The date came and everything went smoothly. They couldn't stop talking. Anita found Richard attractive, not just physically but intellectually. She has always been one to admire people for their intellect. Richard was a proper gentleman. The way he spoke, laughed, and even gave her compliments in a non-flirtatious. He listened when she spoke, maintaining eye contact, and never looking at his phone. She had to admit, this was one of the best dates she has ever been on. After that date, they had a few more and Anita knew she was already feeling something deep for Richard. They talked for hours every night, and when Richard asked for her permission to kiss her, she gave in. He was a proper gentleman indeed. Within a month, they were officially in a romantic relationship, and after a few months, they were engaged. Richard proposed with a beautiful diamond ring. One day, while Anita was taking stocks of her inventory, she got a package delivery. When she opened it, she saw a very beautiful red dress. It had some gold designs on it. She loved the material of the dress, velvet. The red velvet dress was elegant. There was a note inside and she read it. "My Annie, I saw this dress and immediately thought of you. I can imagine how beautiful it would look on you for our dinner tomorrow. I hope you like it. Love, Richard.O." Anita wanted to scream with joy. Ever since she and Richard became official, he started calling her "My Annie." She loved the name because it made her feel seen. The one she loves her too and sees her as his beloved. She couldn't help but smile so brightly. Richard got her a beautiful dress. She tried on the dress. It was quite tight around the waist, so she decided not to eat anything except cucumber till tomorrow. She must get the dress to fit even if it means wearing a corset. The next day evening, as Anita walked in with the dress, her hair and makeup done, Richard looked so stunned. He stared at her for a while in shock. She could tell he fought back tears. You look incredible," he struggled to say while still staring. "You are so beautiful, my Annie." Anita blushed. "Are you going to keep staring or will you offer a seat?" she asked, laughing. "Oh yes. I'm sorry. Please sit down." Richard helped her to her seat. As they sat down and got talking, Richard couldn't take his eyes off her. He looked mesmerized. "I'm glad I have this effect on him," Anita thought. Soon later, Richard cleared his throat. I got a gift for you." He reached for his pocket and got a jewelry case. "I got this for you." Anita opened it and saw a gold bracelet with diamond designs. It had the initials AO. It was her turn to be stunned. "I had it custom made for you. I put your initials AO since you'll soon become Mrs. Anita Olojide in a few days." Anita looked at the Richard, then at the bracelet and back at him again. She didn't know what to say. The bracelet was really expensive, she could tell because it was made with real gold and diamonds. She was so happy she didn't know when she rushed over and kissed him. "I love you so much, Richard." "Thank you. You deserve the best because you are my world." "I love you too." Their wedding day came. It was a very small one, attended by few people, Anita's parents, her two best friends, and a priest to officiate the wedding. Richard's parents didn't attend because they had passed away since he was only a boy. His closest relative, his uncle, passed away the previous year and he was never married, neither did he have any children. Richard literally had no family members. He only had one friend, Femi, but he was in the US. Although Anita wanted a big wedding with all her loved ones there, she didn't because the date Richard insisted on was quite inconvenient. It was a Monday, the 18th of March. It was a busy day for many people, but Richard insisted because he had an important trip on Wednesday. That didn't bother Anita much because the wedding is primarily for both of them and not for people. Also, since Richard has no one present for him, she didn't want him to feel left out or too alone on his wedding day. She felt like a princess on her wedding day. The wedding dress Richard ordered for her was so lovely. It was a customized dress and it fit perfectly with the bracelet Richard gave her. Yes, she was now Mrs. Anita Olojide. She has always wanted to marry a man who loved and cherished her, and Richard was indeed the perfect man. He did all those and more. He always looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. She was excited to spend the rest of her life with this amazing man. Immediately after the wedding, Richard went for his trip. Then when he got back, they went for their honeymoon. However, 1 month after the wedding, Richard announced he was moving back to his house at Ondo State and she had to move with him. Anita was shocked. What would happen to her business and her life in Lagos? She definitely couldn't run her salon from a different state. Please rethink this. Why do you want to move back to Ondo now? She begged. I have spent enough time in Lagos. My businesses are in Ondo and I've neglected them for too long. I need to go back. Anita sobbed, but my business is here. I can't run a salon from another state. I love what I do but I can't do it if I'm not present. Richard placed his hands on her shoulder tenderly. Look Angela, I understand but I'll make it up to you. I promise I'll open a new salon for you in Ondo and it will have the best of equipment. Please just understand. My businesses need me. Anita looked at him. She couldn't disagree with her husband and she doesn't believe in long-distance relationships either. Fine. Let's go, she said, but who is Angela though? Richard looked so blank. He stood very still. Angela. You called me Angela a few seconds ago. Is it that you don't know who you married? Oh, I did. I'm so sorry. My head is crowded with a lot of things. The business is going through a lot. Then he laughed. I'm sorry. You are Anita, my beloved Annie. Anita smiled and hugged him. It's alright. You are stressed. We'll go to Ondo. I'll just close my business. I'll go with you to the ends of the earth if I have to because I love you. I love you too. With all my heart. In a few days, they moved to Ondo. Richard's house at Ondo State wasn't anything like he described it. He said it was a modest house but what Anita saw was a big mansion. The roads leading to the house were quite deceiving. They were dusty with few houses around, then there was nothing for a while before they got to a big gate. She had always known Richard was very private but she didn't think he'll build a house in the middle of nowhere. The next neighboring house was about 20 minutes away. There was a garden with a fountain, a minibar, a swimming pool, and other luxuries. She knew Richard was rich but she didn't know how rich. No wonder his name was Richard. Well, what did you expect, Anita? Your husband's name is Richard, she smiled at her little joke in her head. As soon as they arrived, they were greeted by a middle-aged woman. She was smiling as Richard went to hug her. My Annie, this is Madam Vicky. She is the matron of this house and my caretaker. Hello, Mrs. Anita. You are welcome, Madam Vicky said. It's a pleasure to finally have a MRS here. Don't mind what Richard said, I was the matron but now you are here, it is your house. You are the madam of the house. Madam Vicky hugged Anita. You are really beautiful. Richard has told me a lot about you but he has never shown me a picture of you. Anita looked slightly confused. Told you about me? Oh yes, Richard said. Madam Vicky has literally been taking care of me for over 20 years now. She stepped in when my uncle was rarely around, so she's like my mother now. I tell her everything. But why didn't she come to our wedding? Madam Vicky smiled. It's because I still see you here. Besides, I needed to prepare the house for your arrival. Like I said, you are the madam of this house. Richard interrupted. Alright, we just got here. We can always talk later. Right now, we are very tired and hungry. I am sure Madam Vicky cooked something delicious for us. Yes. Yes, I did. Let's go in. When they got into the bedroom, Anita loved how beautifully designed it was. Richard surely had great taste. The door to their walk-in closet had Annie engraved in it. There were flowers in the bedroom too. I had it designed during our honeymoon, he said as he wrapped his arms around her waist. She liked how Richard included her. This house was theirs. Their haven. They would birth their kids and raise their family there. It is for Richard and Anita. The next few months in Ondo were blissful. It cleared any doubt for Anita about how she would cope. Madam Vicky was an amazing companion. She assisted the older woman with meals and they bonded over things like gardening, food, and random gossip. There were maids in the house but they weren't in-house. They came during the day, cleaned the house, and left after work. Richard was the most loving husband. Despite the work at the office, he set up romantic dinner dates, bought beautiful dresses, customized jewelry, flowers, and wrote lovely romantic notes when he was away at work. They even danced at night in the garden, under the stars. Richard took Anita on a trip to his office. She saw the factory and what they did. However, she noticed some of the employees looking at her and whispering. But she didn't bother because that's what people do. Soon after, Richard started behaving strangely. He was always away on business trips. Although he heavily compensated with gifts and romantic nights when he returned, Anita still wished he was around more. Whenever he was around, he still felt distant. Always lost in thoughts or spends long hours in his study. To add to the issues, Anita started having weird dreams. At first, she thought it was her mind replaying the movies she watched earlier, but they kept recurring. Her dream was always the same: she's in the garden walking at night when she sees a figure standing. When she tries to get closer, it disappears and she suddenly wakes up. She had the dream occasionally, but each time, she felt a cold chill down her spine. When Richard got back from one of his long trips, she narrated the dream to him, but he told her that she needed to rest. It was stress. He hugged her tightly. The next day morning, he surprises her with white lily flowers and some shoes and bags. Some of them were customized with her initials, so obviously, they were tailored for her. Richard said he ordered them while he was away and he wanted to give her in person. Anita was so happy. The next few days went normally when suddenly, she felt the same strange feeling again. That night, she dreamt of the figure again. She narrated the incident to Madam Vicky, who told her that she should rest more often. Less work, more rest. But Anita knew she wasn't stressed. There was nothing she did in the house that made her stressed. She knew what she saw and how she felt. One day, while she was in the room, Richard walked in holding a ticket. "Guess what?" he said, smiling. "What?" Anita was getting amused and curious. "I booked us a vacation ticket to Zanzibar. I know you have been stressed lately and quite bored, and I haven't always been around. But I want to make it up to you. I just want you to relax and let us spend some time together. It's been long." Anita squealed with excitement and wrapped her arms around Richard. "Thank you so much, Richard. I love you so much, baby." She kissed him and he returned the kiss. As the kisses became more intense, she suddenly heard Richard whisper in her ear, "I love you so much, Angela. I would do anything to make you happy." Anita quickly shoved him back. "Who is Angela?" "What? You called me Angela just now." "You said Angela." "No, I didn't." "Who is Angela?" "I don't even know who or what you are talking about." Richard sparked back, already getting upset. "It's funny how you have called me that name before and I thought it was just a mistake. Are you seeing someone else whose name is Angela? Is that it?" She was breathing fast now. Her heart pounded as she said those words. She didn't want to imagine what she was about to ask. "Are you cheating on me, Richard?" Richard looked up shocked and hurt. "What?" "Anita, I believe you are really losing it. First, you say you have recurring strange dreams of someone else in this house, then you say I called you Angela. Now, you are accusing me of cheating. What is your problem? Are you sure you aren't imagining things?" He was breathing heavily too now. Suddenly, he calmed down and became still for a second. Then he came closer and put his hands together, looking straight at Anita's eyes. "I think I know what this is. Anita, are you really alright? For a while now, I noticed the wine bottles in the bar has been reducing. Look, I know you are bored and I'm not always around. This can make you lonely, and I understand it's easier to turn to alcohol for companionship, but it's doing you more harm than good. Richard's words cut deep like a knife to Anita's heart. Was her husband accusing her of being an alcoholic? It hurt even more knowing that she confided in Richard about her previous struggle with alcoholism when her brother died. He was her closest friend, and his death deeply hurt her. She started drinking because she needed comfort. She thought she would get it by drowning herself in bottles of alcohol, but instead, it made her a shadow of herself. She almost lost her business and her life. But fortunately, therapy saved her. For over 7 years, she has been sober and doesn't even drink now unless it's mixed with water. Richard, Anita said slowly, but her voice was deep. What you just said is a low blow. A very low one. You accuse me of being a drunk. You are using my past to call me crazy. Is that who you are? You are unbelievable. Richard opened his mouth to speak, but she stormed out. She was so hurt. She went outside to cool off and just chat with Madam Vicky. What happened, my darling? Madam Vicky asked. Her hands were dirty from digging the soil in the garden. She has always refused to wear gardening gloves. She always said she wanted to feel the flowers, to be one with the earth. Anita had since given up on trying to make her wear gloves. I just had an argument with Richard, Anita responded. No wonder. I heard some loud voices when I passed your room. Madam Vicky looked at her tenderly. Look, my darling, disagreements and arguments are normal in a marriage, especially in the first few years. But none of them will ever matter if you truly love each other, Sho Tiaibo. Anita nodded. Good. You can't be feeling sad now. You are just 2 years in your marriage. By the 10th year you won't even remember what you fought about. Now, come join me in gardening so you can take your mind off things and relax. Madam Vicky and Anita went to garden. That night Richard apologized. He and Anita reconciled. A few weeks passed and Anita was arranging some clothes when a message popped on her phone. It was from Richard. My Annie, my beautiful one, I'm so sorry I have to cancel our trip to Zanzibar. I have a lot of work to do. But I promise to make it up to you. She read the message and sighed in disappointment. This was the second time he was doing so. She really hoped for the trip, to get away for a while. Richard hasn't said any word about her salon, even though when she asks him he always tells her that he would discuss it later, but later has never come. She has always been doing the same thing every day and it is already boring. She just wanted the breath of fresh air. Even worse, Madam Vicky wasn't around to keep her company. Richard said she went on a trip to her village for an emergency. Anita had nothing else to do except to wander around the house. There was no one to visit. She took strolls around the house. She remembered that Richard had a library full of interesting books in his study. The books can be her companion, she thought. Day after day, she read books. When she was done with one, she replaces and gets another. One day, she went as usual to take another book when she accidentally tripped and fell. The book slid under the couch. When she tried to reach for it, her hand felt a handle. She shifted the couch to see what it was. There was an entrance on the floor. It looked like the door to an underground room. This is strange, she thought. Anita picked the book and started to return the couch back to its normal position when she stopped. She was curious to know what was under there. After all, she's been bored. Maybe she can find something interesting. She pulled the handle, but it was locked. She remembered she saw a pair of keys in Richard's drawer. She tried the keys on the door handle and it unlocked. When she pulled it, she saw a staircase leading downstairs. A secret room in the house. It was indeed strange. Anita followed the staircase. She felt she should go back up, but it was too late. Her instincts were directing her to keep going. The room was dark. She couldn't see anything. But she could see there was a light bulb, which means there has to be a light switch. So she used her phone light to look for a light switch. When she flickered the light on, she gasped. Her eyes wide in shock. The room was filled with lots of properties. Dresses, wigs, bags, shoes, boxes, clothes, and so on. She scanned through the room. Then her eyes fell on something strange. She took a closer look and stared in shock. On the wall in front of her was a huge wedding portrait of Richard and another woman. Richard's hand was around her waist. She was smiling. But something was even more odd. Anita looked at the woman and looked at the dress. She quickly got out her phone and searched for her wedding picture. She found it. Yes. The woman was wearing the exact same dress Anita wore on her wedding day. The same design. It was the same dress Richard said was customized specially for her. This woman was wearing the dress. The bracelet on her wrist was the same too. Anita touched her bracelet. The ring. The same. She couldn't believe it. Her heart pounded. What is this? Although faint, she could see the bracelet had the same initials she had in hers. As she leaned in closer, her right foot hit a box. She carried the box and opened it to see its content. But she wasn't prepared for what was inside. Her stomach churned. She felt she would vomit. The box contained papers and photos. The photos were the woman's photos. Anita couldn't continue, but somehow, she found herself scanning through the photos. There were more photos of the woman and Richard. Photos of them kissing at an event, photos of her and Richard with some friends, some photos had Madam Vicky in it. What are all these pictures? Her mind was racing. Then one picture caught her eyes and she stopped. In the picture, the woman was holding a wine glass and Richard leaned, kissing her cheeks. She was smiling happily. She looked so elegant in her dress. The dress. The dress was a familiar red dress. A familiar red velvet dress. Isn't this the same dress Richard got for her? The same dress she forced herself to fit in. This is ridiculous. What does this mean? Anita's head started pounding. Should she just drop everything and run back up, or should she uncover what this is? She chose the latter. She dropped the pictures and continued looking through the box. There were papers. One paper was a marriage certificate. Anita scanned through to see the woman's name and her eyes widened. The certificate was between Richard Olojide and Angela Matthews. Angela. This was the Angela. She knew it. It all made sense now. She wasn't stupid. All this while, she was right. Richard did call her Angela. She heard it. The marriage certificate showed they had been married for a long time. For over 10 years. The date was the same date as her wedding. 18th of March. Anita didn't understand what was happening. Beside the wedding certificate was a receipt from 10 years ago. It showed the location they had their honeymoon. It was the same location she and Richard went for their honeymoon. She felt dizzy now. Her head was pounding. This discovery was too much for her. She took a step back to breathe. Is that why Richard was always away? He had another wife? So Richard was a two-faced cheat. This can't be. She sat on the floor for a while. Then she got up and continued. If she must confront him, she needs all the evidence she can get. So she resumed searching the box. There was a stack of papers tied with a ribbon. She opened them to see. They were letters written by Richard, addressed to My Annie. My Annie. Wait. She stopped. What? She laughed in pain as she opened them to read. The one on her hand was recent. It looked new. My Annie, after all this while, I still can't forget you. I see you every day. I miss your eyes. I miss your smile. I miss the way you call my name. I hear your voice in the wind. Even though you aren't here, I still hear you like you are sitting close to me. Death may have snatched you away, but it can never take away our love. I love you. Anita blinked repeatedly to hold back tears, but it was difficult. The tears that had formed in her eyes were falling now. As she scanned through other letters, she realized they were the same love notes Richard gave her when he went for work. This is not true. I must be dreaming. She pinched herself to see if she would wake up, but she was still in the room. This horror was real. She felt her heart shredding as the realization struck her. Richard wasn't seeing her. He was seeing someone else. Angela. Whoever this Angela was, she was the real Mrs. Ologiade. The real AO. The house, clothes, love notes, and everything else were Angela's. She was living someone else's life. A dead woman's life. Her husband was still attached to a dead woman. My Annie wasn't short for my Anita. It was short for my Angela. Anita felt so stupid. All those times Richard told her he loved her, he was actually telling Angela he loved her. Her mind raced back to the times he accidentally called her Angela. Even when she confronted him about it, he denied, making it look like she was crazy and imagining things. At a point, she started doubting herself. She thought the move from Lagos to Ondo and letting go of her business and life was taking a toll on her mental health. Anita remembered when they had an argument and he called her Angela. He quickly denied it and stormed out. Richard was a liar. First, he was married before and never mentioned it. Now, he was slowly turning her into his dead wife. Everything he did for her was to replace his wife. Madam Vicky must have known her. Madam Vicky. Madam Vicky made a fool of her. Everyone knew. No wonder the employees at the factory were staring and whispering when she visited. All their customized gifts were for Angela Ologiade, not Anita. She quickly removed the bracelet and flung it on the floor. The R&A were not for her and Richard. Angela still owned the house, even in death. This is too much. She needed to get out of there. Anita quickly took some pictures, switched off the lights and ran back up. She replaced the couch and arranged everything as if she hadn't been there. But she took the key. While up, Anita quickly packed her bags, determined to leave. But she stopped herself. Only cowards run, and she was no coward. She would confront Richard. Let anything that will happen happen. Richard was the coward, not her. She would confront him once he returns. Richard was scheduled to come back in 2 days. He knew of her strange dreams. No wonder she had them. She was living someone's life. The days that followed were long. She cried her eyes out. When Richard got home, she greeted him normally. He asked about her bracelet. She told him that she kept it because her wrist was hurting her. Then he gave her a customized watch with Rio engraved in it. He said he just got it as an apology gift for canceling their vacation. Anita smiled. She could see through his lying tongue. She took the watch and thanked him dryly as he went to his study. About 30 minutes later, she heard him frantically searching his office. She walked in. "What's going on?" she asked. The office looked scattered. Richard's tie was loosened and his suit disheveled. He looked like he had aged 10 years. "It's nothing. I'm just looking for something important," he responded without looking up. Anita dangled the keys. "Is this what you are looking for?" Richard looked up and she could have sworn he aged another 10 years. He looked like he had seen death itself. How did you?" He took some steps forward. "Stop right there. Don't come an inch closer," Anita warned. Her voice very firm. "How did I what? How did I get the key?" "I don't think that is the right question you should ask now. The right question should be if I found out you were using me all this while." Richard didn't respond. Instead, he stepped back. Anita continued. "All this time, there was really an Angela and you were trying to use me to be with her. You wanted her and you lied to my face for 2 years, Richard. 2 years." Her voice was breaking now. Before this moment, she had pictured how she would confront him. She imagined herself standing before him with her voice so stern. She practiced how she would say her words. But now, she couldn't even remember what she practiced. All the words were flowing out as they came because she was too emotional. Her marriage was a lie. Richard still didn't respond. His head was bowed now and his shoulders slumped. He looked defeated and tired. Anita was just getting started. You told me you loved me, but it was Angela you were talking to. You called me my Annie, but it was her you imagined when you said those words. Everything you got me was hers. Even my wedding dress. Our wedding date. Nothing was special. The tears she swore to hold back were flowing out now. Richard still didn't look up and he didn't respond. To her, he looked like a different man from who she married. The name, the gifts, the love messages, and flowers were all lies. They were hers. Angela has always been here. Your wife? She is your wife, not me. You lied to me from the first day. Why? What did I ever do to you? I knew you called me Angela, but you denied it, making me feel stupid. I thought I was losing my mind or something. You knew. Angela. Angela is always here. Even on our matrimonial bed. While we were making love, you blurted her name. I thought I didn't hear right, but it all makes sense now. You are a monster, Richard. Anita was screaming now. Her heart was beating really fast. The driver was outside, so he couldn't hear them. Anita's chest was heavy. She fought back tears, but she was losing the battle. Her face was wet already. Then she stood still and gasped. She looked at Richard in horror. Then she spoke so calmly. Did you kill your wife, Richard? Suddenly, Richard shot his head up. He looked at her in shock. But she wasn't done. Did you kill your wife and now you regret it, so you decided to use me to relieve your guilt? Is that it? Are you a murderer? No, his voice was so soft he literally gasped the word out. Then what is all this? Talk to me. I don't even know what to think anymore. I don't even know you. Richard didn't say anything. Anita's sadness turned to anger. I said talk to me. At least I deserve some respect. I deserve answers. Or will you kill me too? Do you have some kind of fetish? You marry women, spoil them, kill them, and get replacements. She was so angry that she didn't think of what she was saying. The words were flowing out as they came. Richard apologized. I order you to tell me now. What is all this? I didn't kill her, Richard said without looking up. His voice was calm and deep. How could I kill a woman I loved so much? As he spoke, he looked up at Anita. His eyes were wet as tears strolled down his cheeks. I am very sorry. I didn't intend to hurt you like this. I didn't think you'll find out. That doesn't answer my questions. You took me away from my family, my business, my life in Lagos. I was ready to follow you wherever, but it was all a lie. I'm sorry, Anita. I just couldn't let her go. You want to know what this is? I'll tell you. Richard turned round to sit on the couch. His head bowed. He was slumped on the chair as he began his story. The truth is, Angela wasn't just any woman. She was the love of my life. We met on a plane during my college days. We were on our way from London to Lagos. Angela was my seatmate. She had the sweetest smile. He smiled as he reminisced. Anita felt sick. She couldn't deny she was jealous, and it made her angry even more. Richard continued, we started talking on the plane, and from there, we became good friends. She saw me and I saw her. We told each other everything. In a short while, I realized I was in love. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Angela was perfect. She was elegant. I proposed to her, not to be my girlfriend, but to be my wife. I was too in love to even think. When she accepted, I was the happiest man alive. We got married 10 years ago, that's 8 years before I met you. Angela Matthews was the most beautiful bride, my wife. She was quite materialistic, so always liked to customize her things. I didn't mind because I can afford them. We communicated through letters sometimes. It was our way of keeping our love original and true to the heart. Our marriage was blissful in the early years still. Richard took a pause and swallowed hard. He tightened his jaw and clenched his fist. Anita guessed that whatever he wanted to say was unpleasant. Richard breathed heavily and continued, "We were happy till 3 years after our marriage. We started having arguments almost every day. Love wasn't enough. I was always away for business and she hated it. Later, I found out she was having an affair with Femi. Femi was my friend and he was still in Nigeria then. I confronted her and told her to choose between Femi and I. She chose me, and because I still loved her with all my heart, we decided to work it out. I will be a more present husband and we will work on our marriage. But what I didn't know was that she had kidney cancer and has been treating it secretly for a while. It is very hard to cure. She didn't tell me. When she finally did, it was too late. She had few months to live. Then she died in my arms. I was a broken man. I thought of joining her, but I couldn't. Not yet. I kept all her things as if she were still around, as if she just went for a trip and would be back soon. My Annie wouldn't just leave me alone just like that. Somehow, I lived through each day hoping she would return. I almost gave up, but when I met you, I felt something. I hadn't thought of remarriage, but seeing you that day, I felt life had returned Angela to me. The name similarity was the confirmation I needed. This was my chance to be the right husband to Angela. To show her what she means to me and how much I love her. I wanted to relive our best moments, so I gave them to you. I thought that through you, I could finally be with Angela. He stopped talking as Anita tried to process everything she had heard. Then why are her things down there? I told Madam Vicky to create space for you. We moved all of Angela's things from my room. They were safe there. Richard cleaned his eyes. He had been crying while talking. They were silent for a while. Richard was lost in thoughts. Anita was fighting not to scream. She couldn't do this. She just couldn't live another woman's life. Yes, Richard showed her love, but that wasn't enough. In fact, it was nothing, knowing that he did it because he wanted to compensate for his dead wife, the true love of his life. She knew what she had to do. I have one question, Richard. For one moment, did you at least love me as Anita, not Angela? Richard didn't respond. Instead, he looked down in embarrassed. Thank you. Your silence says it all. I can't do this. My mom used to tell me a living heart can be won, but a lost soul is forever gone. Your soul is lost, Richard, and I can't stay to find it. Some people may endure this because of the money and luxuries, but those are people who don't know their self-worth. I know my self-worth, Richard. I know I am worthy of love. I want my man to see me when he looks at me, not someone else. I want to be loved for me, and I'm worthy of that. I can't stay. This is too much. She cleaned her face and walked off. Richard didn't say anything. He only closed his eyes for a few seconds and continued staring at the window. Anita hurried packed her remaining things. However, she left behind all the gifts Richard gave her. They were never hers to begin with. She looked at the house one last time and left. 7 years later, while Anita was shopping with her baby, she bumped into Richard at the mall. Hey, Anita. She heard a voice from behind. After all these years, Richard still looked amazing. He certainly aged like fine wine. Hi, Richard. How are you? I'm good. It's so nice to see you. Yeah. What are you doing here? She asked as she balanced her toddler on her hips. He was munching on potato chips. Richard smiled. Oh, I just came in to get some drinks. I'm meeting with some friends at the hotel close by. You? That's nice. I came to get some groceries. We just returned to Nigeria for the holidays. Yes, I heard you moved to the States. I asked about you. Believe it or not, I did care about you. Anita gave a half smile. I know. After you tried to convince me to take some money after the divorce. But I didn't want it for obvious reasons. Richard laughed. True. Then he said calmly, I went to therapy over the years and I'm better now. It's fine. I'm happy for you and I wish you all the best. I better start going now. My husband is waiting outside for me. They bade each other goodbye. As Anita walked away, she was glad to have met Richard, but she was also thankful to have met her husband. As Richard walked to his car, he received a call. Hello. I'm sorry I can't make it. I have a dinner date with my woman tonight. Later that evening, he was talking to someone at dinner. He brought out a little box from his pocket and said, from the first day I met you, I knew you would turn my life around. I'm glad our paths crossed. Before our wedding, I want to give you my own vow. I promise to love you for the rest of my life till my last breath. I got this gift as my token of love. The lady he was talking to smiled happily. She opened the box to see a beautiful gold bracelet with diamond designs. It had the initials AO engraved on it. Wow, Richard. This is beautiful. I love it. It matches this beautiful red dress you got me. Thank you, my love. She excitedly wore the bracelet on her wrist. Richard gave a low smile. I'm glad you like it, my Annie. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Also, please drop your thoughts in the comment section. We release new and authentic stories every week.